The man who changed history with a rejection letter. Imagine a world where one art school acceptance letter changed everything, where 80 million lives were saved and where the 20th century took a completely different path. In 1907, a young Austrian man applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. He dreamed of becoming a painter. His application was rejected twice. That rejection set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the deadliest conflict in human history. World War II, the Holocaust, and the deaths of over 80 million people. His name was Adolf Hitler. But what if the Academy had accepted him? What if Hitler had become an artist instead of a dictator? How different would our world be today? Let's explore the life of history's most notorious figure and imagine an alternate reality where art, not politics, defined his legacy. The early years, a dreamer with a paintbrush. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria-Hungary. His childhood was difficult. His father, Alois, was strict and abusive. His mother, Clara, was loving but died of cancer. When Adolf was just 18 years old as a teenager, Hitler showed talent in art he loved, drawing, painting, and architecture. He dreamed of attending the prestigious Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, becoming a famous painter, and living a life surrounded by culture and creativity. In 1907, at age 18, Hitler moved to Vienna and applied to the Academy. He submitted his portfolio filled with architectural drawings and landscapes. The Academy rejected him. The examiners said his work was technically adequate but lacked emotion and creativity. They told him he should study architecture instead, not painting. Devastated, Hitler tried again in 1908. This time, he wasn't even allowed to take the entrance exam. These rejections crushed him instead of pursuing architecture or finding another path. Hitler spiraled. He lived in homeless shelters, sold postcards on the streets, and grew increasingly bitter. He blamed the world for his failures. He developed extreme nationalist views and a deep hatred for Jews, Marxists, and democracy. The rejection from the Art Academy was the turning point. If Vienna had accepted him, history might have been entirely different. The rise of a dictator from failed artist to Führer after years of poverty and resentment. World War I broke out in 1914. Hitler enlisted in the German army, finally finding purpose. He served as a messenger on the Western Front and was awarded the Iron Cross for bravery. But Germany lost the war in 1918. Hitler was devastated. He believed Germany had been betrayed by Jews and communists. This conspiracy theory became the foundation of his political ideology. In 1919, Hitler joined a small extremist group called the German Workers' Party. He quickly became its leader and renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. Hitler was a powerful speaker. His speeches were full of rage, passion, and promises to restore Germany's greatness. People listened. Germany was in crisis after World War I. The Treaty of Versailles had crippled the economy. Inflation was out of control. Unemployment was massive. People were desperate for a leader who promised change. Hitler gave them that promise by 1933 through a combination of propaganda violence and political maneuvering. The Nazi Party became the largest party in Germany on January 30th, 1933. Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within months, he dismantled democracy, arrested his opponents, and declared himself Führer, absolute leader. The failed artist had become one of the most powerful men in the world. Nazi Germany. The rise of evil once in power. Hitler transformed Germany into a totalitarian state. He banned all opposition, controlled the press, and created a cult of personality around himself. But his ambitions went far beyond Germany. Hitler believed in creating a pure Aryan race. He blamed Jews for all of Germany's problems and began a systematic campaign of persecution. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of their rights. Jewish businesses were destroyed, synagogues were burned, and Jews were forced into ghettos. This was only the beginning. Hitler's foreign policy was equally aggressive. He wanted to expand Germany's territory and create Lebensraum, living space, for the German people in 1938. Germany annexed Austria, Hitler's birthplace, in 1939. Hitler invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. World War II, the deadliest conflict in history. Hitler's war machine was unstoppable at first. By 1940, Germany had conquered France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway. The German blitzkrieg, lightning war tactics overwhelmed Europe. Hitler seemed invincible, but his ambitions grew too large. In 1941, he made two fatal mistakes. First, he invaded the Soviet Union, launching Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. The Germans advanced rapidly, but the brutal Russian winter and fierce Soviet resistance stopped them second. Hitler declared war on the United States after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Now Germany was fighting the Soviets, the British, and the Americans all at once. Meanwhile, Hitler's darkest plan was unfolding the final solution. In 1942, Nazi Germany began the systematic extermination of Jews across Europe. Concentration camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Dachau became death factories. 6 million Jews were murdered in what became known as the Holocaust. Millions of others, Romani people, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and LGBTQ individuals were also killed by 1945. The war was turning against Germany. The Soviets were closing in from the east, the Americans and British from the west. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops surrounded Berlin, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker. Germany surrendered on May 8th, 1945. The war was over, but the cost was unimaginable. Over 80 million people had died, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. Entire cities were destroyed, economies were ruined. Europe was in ruins, all because of one man's hatred, ambition, and desire for power. The aftermath, a shattered world. The world that emerged from World War II was fundamentally changed. Europe was divided between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies, leading to the Cold War. Germany was split into East and West. The United Nations was created to prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. The Holocaust became a defining moment in human history, a reminder of what hatred and unchecked power can lead to. Israel was established in 1948 as a homeland for Jewish survivors. The trials at Nuremberg held Nazi leaders accountable for crimes against humanity. Hitler's name became synonymous with evil. His actions shaped the modern world in ways we still feel today. But what if none of this had happened? What if Hitler had been accepted into art school? What if his life had taken a completely different path? What if the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts had said yes? What if Hitler had spent his life painting instead of waging war? Let's rewrite history. What if Hitler became an artist? Imagine it's 1907. Adolf Hitler submits his portfolio to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. This time, the examiners see potential. They accept him. Hitler's life changes forever. Instead of becoming history's greatest monster, he becomes a struggling artist in Vienna. Then perhaps a moderately successful painter. This one decision alters the course of the entire 20th century. Let's explore what this alternate world would look like. Hitler, the artist. A different life in this timeline. Hitler enrolls at the Vienna Academy in 1907. He studies classical painting, architecture, and sculpture. He struggles at first. His work is technically good, but lacks the emotional depth of truly great art. He receives criticism from his professors. But instead of spiraling into bitterness, he improves. He finds a community of fellow artists, cafes filled with debates about art, philosophy, and politics. Unlike in our timeline, where he fell into extremist circles, Hitler is surrounded by creative intellectuals who challenge his views. By 1910, Hitler is making a modest living selling landscape paintings and architectural sketches. He's not famous, but he's content when World War I breaks out. In 1914, Hitler might still enlist in the German army. In this timeline, he serves, returns home, and processes the trauma through his art. Instead of channeling his anger into politics, he paints somber war scenes, capturing the horror and futility of the conflict. His work gains some recognition after the war. He moves to Munich or Berlin and becomes part of the post-war art scene. He's not a master, but he's a working artist, living a quiet, unremarkable life. Hitler dies in the 1970s or 1980s as an obscure Austrian painter. Few people remember his name. He never becomes a dictator, never starts a war, and never commits genocide. One acceptance letter saves 80 million lives, the world without World War II. If Hitler had become an artist, the most immediate consequence is obvious. World War II, as we know it, never happens. This changes everything. But we must ask, if Hitler hadn't risen to power, would someone else have filled the void? Germany in the 1920s and 1930s was in crisis. The Treaty of Versailles had humiliated the country economically. Inflation, unemployment, and resentment were widespread. Extremist movements were growing on both the left and the right. Without Hitler, the Nazi Party might never have gained power. Hitler was uniquely charismatic. His speeches, his propaganda, and his ability to manipulate mass emotions were central to the Nazis' rise. Without him, the party remains a fringe extremist group. Perhaps another leader emerges, someone less effective, less ruthless, or less ideologically extreme. Germany might have experienced a different form of authoritarianism, maybe a military dictatorship or a communist uprising. But it's unlikely to have been as catastrophic as Nazi Germany. The Holocaust almost certainly doesn't happen in the way it did. Hitler's personal obsession with anti-Semitism drove the final solution without him. 6 million Jews might have lived this alone, makes the alternate timeline infinitely better Europe. In the 1930s and 1940s, a fragile peace without Hitler's aggression. The 1930s in Europe looked very different. Germany does not remilitarize the Rhineland. In 1936, Austria is not annexed. In 1938, Czechoslovakia is not invaded. Poland is not attacked in 1939. Britain and France do not declare war. This doesn't mean Europe is peaceful. The continent is still dealing with economic depression. The rise of fascism in Italy under Mussolini and the Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939. The Soviet Union under Stalin is still expanding its influence. Communism and fascism are still in ideological conflict, but without Hitler. A Second World War on the scale of 1939 to 1945 does not occur. Instead, Europe might experience smaller regional conflicts. Italy under Mussolini might attempt expansion in Africa or the Balkans. The Soviet Union might clash with Eastern European nations. Japan still invades China in 1937. But without Germany as an ally, Japan might not attack Pearl Harbor. The United States might stay out of Asian conflicts longer or intervene differently. The result is a world where millions of lives are saved. Europe is not reduced to rubble. Cities like Warsaw, Dresden, and Berlin are not destroyed. The global economy does not collapse in the same way. The Holocaust never happens. Perhaps the most significant consequence of Hitler becoming an artist is that the Holocaust does not occur. 6 million Jews survive. Families are not torn apart. Entire communities in Poland, Germany, and across Europe continue to exist. Jewish culture, science, and art flourish in ways that were erased in our timeline. How many Einsteins, how many great musicians, writers and thinkers were murdered in the Holocaust? In this alternate world they live, they contribute to society. The moral weight of the 20th century is fundamentally different. The United Nations might still be created, but the urgency of human rights protections is different. Israel might not be established in 1948, or if it is, it happens under very different circumstances. The Jewish diaspora continues to thrive in Europe instead of being forced to flee or perish. The Cold War. A different struggle even without Hitler. The ideological battle between communism and capitalism still exists. The Soviet Union under Stalin is still a totalitarian state. The United States is still a capitalist democracy. But the Cold War as we know it looks very different without World War II. The Soviet Union does not expand into Eastern Europe in the same way. Countries like Poland, Hungary, and East Germany might not fall under Soviet control. The Iron Curtain might not descend across Europe. The United States does not emerge as the sole Western superpower. In the same way, without a global war to mobilize its industry and military. America remains powerful, but perhaps less dominant. The nuclear arms race might not happen, or it happens more slowly without the urgency of World War II. Nuclear weapons might not be developed in 1945. Maybe the atomic bomb is never dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This could mean a slower, more cautious approach to nuclear technology. Or it could mean that someone else develops the bomb first, leading to a very different balance of power technology and science-delayed progress. World War II. Who accelerated technological progress in dramatic ways. Radar, jet engines, rockets, computers, and nuclear energy, all developed rapidly because of the war. Without World War II, these technologies still emerge, but more slowly. The space race might not happen in the 1960s. If the US and USSR are not locked in Cold War competition, humanity might reach space decades later. Or maybe we focus more on other technologies, medical advances, computing, and communications without the wartime urgency, penicillin mass production, jet travel. And even the internet might develop on different timelines. Computers as we know them were driven by code-breaking efforts during the war. Without that, the digital revolution could be delayed by decades. We might be living in a world without smartphones, without social media, without the rapid globalization that defines the 21st century on the other hand, without the destruction of World War II resources that went into rebuilding Europe. Could have been invested in peaceful scientific research, medicine, education, and infrastructure, might have advanced faster. Millions of lives saved from war could have contributed to human progress. It's impossible to say whether the world would be more or less advanced, but it would certainly be different culture and society, a less traumatized world. One of the most profound effects of Hitler becoming an artist is cultural. Without the trauma of World War II and the Holocaust, the 20th century is less defined by existential dread. Entire generations are not scarred by war. Literature, film, and art from the 1940s onward would be radically different. No Schindler's List, no Night by Elie Wiesel, no countless stories of survival and loss. The collective memory of humanity is lighter post-war. Existentialism, the philosophy born from the horrors of the war, might not dominate intellectual thought. Instead, optimism and faith in progress might define the mid-20th century, or perhaps the Great Depression and other struggles still create a culture of caution and reflection. But the deep scars of genocide and total war are absent. Would the world be better? A complex question on the surface. The answer is obvious, yes. 80 million people do not die. The Holocaust does not happen. Europe is not destroyed. This is unquestionably better. But history is complicated without the crucible of World War II. Would democracy have strengthened in the same way the post-war order, the United Nations, NATO, and the European Union were all built in response to the horrors of the war? Without that motivation, international cooperation might be weaker. Authoritarianism might have lingered longer. Without the clear moral lesson of Nazi Germany, would humanity have learned the dangers of totalitarianism, racism, and unchecked power? Or would those evils have emerged in different forms still? The fundamental truth remains: millions of innocent lives would have been saved. That alone makes the alternate timeline worth imagining. Conclusion: a single decision that changed everything. If Adolf Hitler had been accepted into the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts in 1907, the entire trajectory of the 20th century changes. World War II. As we know it does not happen. The Holocaust does not occur. 80 million people live instead of die. The Cold War looks different. Technology develops at a different pace. Culture is less defined by trauma. Hitler dies as an unknown painter, and the world moves forward without ever knowing the catastrophe it avoided. It's a haunting reminder of how fragile history is. One decision, one moment, one rejection letter set in motion a chain of events that reshaped the world in the worst possible way. But in an alternate reality, where that letter said yes. Yes, the 20th century becomes a story of art, not war of life, not death of what could have been. If one man had followed his dream, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating alternate histories and the moments that shaped our world. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating stories about history's greatest figures and events.